So Velchin apologetics right out of the gate. Here we go. So you believe you are a bunch of evolved fish?
That's really like that's too
Velchin,
unserious to
come on,
even
man.
field,
It's
honestly.
not a serious question. I'm
Not a
here's
serious question in the least bit.
Yeah, it's not. I'm gonna get this out of the way though, because here's the deal. In Velchin, I absolutely do sincerely appreciate you commenting. I don't think you're serious with the question, but I do appreciate you engaging. I always say this in every one of these interviews. We're not going to get into a heavy debate in terms of Christian versus atheist. There's so many channels out there that do that. And if I wanted, 100,000 subscribers and a lot of clicks, that's what I would do because that really generates a lot. But it doesn't really make me feel particularly good, and I don't learn anything.
Mhm.
But so if you have a question that we can answer that's legitimate, I'm happy to answer, and Carlos is happy to answer. But no, we didn't evolve from fish. That's kind of a complete misunderstanding of how evolution works.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you taking a shot.
I
Yeah,
want to
take a shot, man.
recommend something. I want to recommend to this to Velchin Apologetics the really brief sequence of what science sees as how life evolved to into humans essentially. And there's a nice little clip during like Cosmos, Carl Sagan, and even the Cosmos with help me, oh God, what's his name?
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was just blanking. Yeah,
No, that's a problem.
just blanking on that. But yeah, there's a nice quick little animation on how like cellular cellular organisms came into becoming the creatures you see now in the Anthropocene era.
Yeah, it's a fascinating subject, and we're kind of making light of Velchin's question because I don't think he was particularly serious with that, or she, I should say he. But
they're non-binary.
Yeah, they're non-binary as far as we're concerned because I don't know what the name Velchin means. But we're making light of that question up because I don't think it was particularly a serious question. But there are a lot of people that do believe that we think that we as atheists say that we evolved from monkeys, and it's a very common misunderstanding of evolution.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm 55. When I was a kid and was learning evolution, I quite frankly don't remember how I learned it. I've known the right way for so long. I don't know if I ever learned it that way. Maybe in fact that was taught. And the older you get, in terms like say my mom who's 75, maybe her generation was taught that it was a direct line from monkeys to you and I.
Mm-hmm.
But no one believes that. No one says that now. But it's a common question. I'm sure you've heard that. Someone has asked you that, and they definitely asked me that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's obviously meant as a little bit of a slur and a put down, but it's just so inconsistent with how evolution is viewed and how we think of evolution. But it's still pervasive. That question hangs out there all the time.
Yeah, and if I may say something, that growing up self-imposed Catholic, I'll call it that, I didn't really see any contradiction between my learning of evolution and the Christian creation myth.
Really?
The two concepts could lived in my head side by side without contradicting one another.
Okay, so let's talk about that because I had a similar feeling when I was a kid because my mom, bless her heart, she was Episcopal then. Now she's Southern Baptist, a little bit more severe. But she told me as a kid that both could be true. That you could be created by God, and you could then evolve. I would, that's not really the worst explanation. I could live with that. If I had still believed in God, I could live with that because it does satisfy the reality that we know of evolution.
Right.
But it allows for a creator. And then something else I always try to point out at some point, I don't know that there's not a creator. I don't believe there is. I don't live my life as if there is. But if some reason tomorrow I was presented by God and they said, nope, you were wrong. Okay. I can't know everything, but I don't live my life.
It's all about the evidence.
Yeah. And I have not seen the evidence that satisfies me.
Same.
But so tell me a little bit more about your thoughts on how you put the two together and how you felt that they could live together with evolution and the creation story.
Well, it was viewed like I would view just the creation story as just more of a myth, but like something that that was, you know, the ancient reckoning of the people who had written what is now considered the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
They were I just viewed I pretty much the when if you're a Christian, um, a lot of the Old Testament is kind of like null and void. It's just
Yeah.
like the swallowing of the idea the idea of the Bible being univocal
Mm-hmm.
and being prophetic. That pretty much distorts any sort of truth that any sort of scientific evidence that's going to put the lie to or just correct that which was said, because you know the people who wrote uh, these texts didn't have much of an idea. I mean, other than the fact that like stories passed on from one to another. It's about symbolic thinking,
Right.
you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
think honestly, I think God is really a metaphor that just kind of got away from everyone,
Well,
kind of
actually, I
ran
wouldn't even
away.
agree with that. I understand what
Yeah,
you mean by that. Yeah. We
right.
have another comment that I want you to address.
Mhm.
Actually, Wesley has about 5 comments. We're not gonna hit all of them because you'll see why. Here we go.
Okay.
So this is Wesley Curry the
Mhm.
second.
Okay.
Um, so Wesley is not particular fans of ours. I'm taking it because
Uh
we're
huh.
deceivers. We're
Are
deceiving.
you
We're wicked.
rage watching, Wesley?
Wesley,
Are you
come
just
on,
gonna
man.
do you want to feel that rage, that absolute
It
rage
apparently
about
does.
seeing people
Wesley,
who
you made
believe
another
something from
comment.
you?
I'm going to put it up here because I don't really understand it, and I'm happy to
And
put up
it's
an explanation.
DECEIVERS.
Yeah.
Great.
He says on here, let me he says, I hope
And
you're both happy. Then he
shells
says this, I hope you both get your
ain't no money involved.
money. And maybe Carlos, you'll know what this next one is.
Uh-huh.
The 32,500. I have no idea what you're talking about, Wesley. If that's a number that's significant in some way beyond
Yeah,
a random cheap
yeah,
car, I don't know what 32,523 is. I'm happy to put your explanation up. Don't be
yeah.
rude. But
Honestly.
but then he says he's kind of hoping we're both going to get branded with the barcodes. You know,
Nope,
okay.
nope, nope, nope. You're
I don't.
misreading Revelation.
Yeah,
You really are. Revelation is not prophecy. Revelation was a description of the times that it was that the book was written in. So yeah,
yeah,
place your reality with mine, and the actual he Bible scholars actually tend. There's a consensus that Revelation is not prophecy.
yeah. So here we go. Of
Maybe in
course, we
your
don't
visions
understand
and
it.
dreams.
It's the 32,523 is secret knowledge that Wesley has.
Mhm.
You and I have never heard of it.
No,
But
no, no,
again,
no, 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 no,
Wesley,
no, no.
to be fair,
Mhm.
we don't really care.
Yeah, honestly, we don't flip and care. Honestly,
No, if that's a number that Jesus came up with, which would have been weird because they didn't have dollars, but whatever.
yeah,
You've done the
exactly.
math, you've done the inflation since 2,000 years ago, and it's added up to 32,523. Okay, I'm going to take your word for it that that's somewhere in the Bible. And if you're willing to put up a scripture number, I will post it the next time when this video is recorded and released.
Mhm.
But I don't really care, and I'm not dissing you, Wesley. I just, the things that are in the Bible, Carlos and I are both saying we don't believe the Bible. So the fact that
The
something is
Bible's not
in the
univocal.
Bible, and I don't mean this to sound smart ass, and it's going to because it kind of is. I have never read the Harry Potter books either. There's probably things in there I don't get. I've seen some of the movies, but I
Mhm,
don't get all the references.
mhm,
There's things in every book that I've not read or read thoroughly
mhm.
and don't sleep with, so to speak, like every night. I'm not going to get because I don't believe them and they don't guide our lives.
Right.
But again, and now he's just kind of going off. So Wesley, we're probably not going to engage with you anymore, but we do
Yeah.
appreciate it, as I
Right,
said.
Wesley. I have one. I have one recommendation for you. Check out the Instagram channel for Dan McClellan. He's a scholar
Yes,
of the Hebrew Bible, and
he's
like
so
he
good.
lays it down chapter
Yes.
and verse like nobody's business.
He's
Check him out.
very good. And Wesley did say bye. So bye, Wesley. But thanks
All
for
right. Have a
joining.
good
And
evening,
again,
Wesley.
as long as
Take
you're
care of
civil,
yourself.
Wesley, and you were, I think you were trying to engage with us, but you were civil. So I will as civil as I can expect sometimes. That's
Mhm.
fine. But I do appreciate that. Wesley. Um I'm not even addressing any more Wesley's things.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Okay.
but David has a question completely outside, but
Okay.
it's going to come up at some point.
Fair enough.
So, question for both: what do you think the origin of the? What do you think the origin of life and or matter is?
Hmm.
And I'm going to let you go with that, and then I'll follow up on you if you
Okay.
have an answer.
We own like what I think is only what science has been able to reveal to us so far.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be. It's a matter of being honest. Of what do we know? You know,
Yeah.
and what is matter? What is life? And those are questions being tackled by people much that have like those questions are above my pay grade, and they're being tackled by people who are you know who are much more like intensely studying them, who
Mm-hmm.
have done the math literally, who
Yeah.
have like
Literally the math.
done the experiments, seen the results, have the hypotheses, the theories, etc., etc. And
Right.
so we only know what science has told us so far, and that is a process of discovery. It's something for people who are not entirely like, people who are have a certain comfort with uncertainty. You know,
Yes. So you and I are sort of hitting that from the same spot. I always tell people when that question comes up, because as you know, as an atheist, it comes up all the time,
yeah,
and we're expected to have an answer. And I think that is one of the significant things that separates, say, you and I
mhm,
from, say, a believer, is we would say, I don't really have an answer. First of all, I'm not educated enough to even have a real hypothesis. I can trust others like a Carl Sagan and say,
right,
okay, that sounds reasonable
mhm,
based on my having not studied it anywhere near the level of Carl Sagan. And I wouldn't pretend or have the arrogance to believe so.
right,
And I can also sleep comfortably tonight, not knowing how it all started.
right,
That's why I said earlier in this conversation, if a God came to me and said, no, you're wrong, man. I was hanging out. I didn't come down. I should have talked to you earlier, but no, I'm here. I created it all. Sorry sorry for the misunderstanding. I'd be like, awesome. Thanks for letting me know. But that hasn't happened. It's not going to happen, quite frankly.
mhm,
And I'm okay with that. I don't know who invented the wheel either, but I'll get in my car tomorrow and drive on 4 of them. It doesn't matter to me why it started. If there was a creator, that's fine. If there was not a creator, that's fine.
mhm,
I'm okay with not knowing. Believers, and I'm again making a blank statement, tend to want to, and we would call this the God of the gaps, right?
mhm,
They don't know, so therefore it must be God. And of course,
yep,
our question a lot of times we'll go back to is, okay, God created the universe and God created matter and God created all these things. Our very next obvious, logical, and reasonable question is who created God? If
mhm,
all things must have a creator, you can't you have to keep going back because
yep.
all things have a creator.
Well, you know
But then
what?
they'll say, no, God's always been here. Well, if you can accept that, why can you not accept that the universe has always been here? It's
Yeah,
the same acceptance,
mhm,
right? They both have no start.
right,
They're both just here, and
mhm,
we're just living our lives going forward with them having started something.
right.
But it's an interesting, and I'm, what was it, David? I think it was David, right? Yeah, David Funk. Thank you for that question. It's not an uncommon question
Right,
for people like Carlos and I.
mhm, right,
So I'm always happy to sort of address it.
right.
But you and I are both not saying that we're experts on the beginning of matter. So,
Okay, so what I want, this brings up an interesting memory, a little anecdote of mine.
uh-huh.
I was with I have a good friend who I've known since the age of 2, and I was with his family. I was a teenager. I was definitely an atheist by then, and definitely starting to lean further towards the left. And I told folks I'm an atheist, and
Okay.
his grandmother got really kind of frantic with me, like, "Who created you? Who created?" It's like,
Yeah.
who is the wrong question. It's not a who. I mean, I wasn't able to answer any of the questions, nor was I super inclined to. It's just like, like, go back. She wanted me to, I guess, to think, go back and feel like there's a who behind this. There isn't always a who. In fact,
Yeah.
very, I mean, there's no who when it comes to what came before us,
Yeah. I
because
agree.
who only came when we came up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The
There's
idea
no
of
who.
who, the idea of like personhood, of like
Yeah.
consciousness, of agency,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that's
Yeah.
the only time when who is ever relevant.
Yeah. That's an interesting point, and it kind of goes where I think those kind of questions come from a lot, which is a very human question, right?
Mhm.
Because humans, You and I are on a podcast and I'm talking into a microphone. I have a keyboard and monitors and I have a light
Mhm,
and all this stuff. That something was created by something, right?
mhm,
This in case these are all men.
mhm,
Men created all, or, man created all these physical things I see. So the things that I know man did not create, water and trees and the animals on the planet, humans would say, okay, well, if I didn't make it, someone bigger than me had to have made it.
mhm.
And that's where I think we get ourselves a little stuck. And I say we, man, because we're looking for that mechanic that put all this together.
Right.
And I would say, as from my own perspective, it's like, no, not necessarily.
Yeah.
I might make a building. I may screw something together in my garage, but something could have just always existed, or I just don't know.
Right.
And you saw my cat jumped up earlier. I'm gonna pet my cat anyways.
Right.
I
Exactly.
don't know why we have cats, but that's fine. I can live without knowing.
Mhm. Right.
Yeah.